Hello and welcome to another edition of the Powerhouse Woman Show. I'm your host, Monica Pierre. And what this show is all about is that we talk to one on one, a conversation with some extraordinary powerhouse women about big topics, dealing with creating what you want and what that looks like and how they built their successes and their wisdom and their lessons learned as well. Today on the show, we're going to talk about who is in your inner circle. Remember the commercial? What's in your wallet? Our question is, who's in your inner circle? That's what we're going to talk about today. Is it colleagues, supporters, people who tell you the truth? You know how sometimes you'll say, well, tell me what you think, but you really don't want to know what they think if it's not what you really want to hear. But in your inner circle, do you find people who are willing to tell you the truth? Well, we are joined by someone who knows how to do this all, how to surround yourself with success. We're joined by Tina Meilleur, and she's an executive coach and business consultant. She's also known as the Employee Whisperer. She is an author of Your Next Chapter. Tina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Monica. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Right. And you are a big believer in designing your success. In fact, you're the founder and CEO of Design Your Success. Let's talk a little bit about the inner circle. Why is having an inner circle so important?
Well, I had spent most of my professional career as an executive working in companies, uh, a senior manager or above. And I can tell you, without having that inner circle, those people around you, or the ones you could pick up the phone and call, email, text, whatever, and just really support you, I don't know where I would be. And it's a real big topic for me with my clients today, even today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because I always was curious. Do people become your inner circle, or do you find that you are now in my inner circle and it's very intentional from the beginning? How does it work?
Well, it you tend to have your inner circle as the people who you surround yourself with. You find yourself surrounded by, right? And I think as you get older and mature in your career and you really know who you are as a woman and what you want to do with your professional career, whether you're a business owner, an executive, a manager, a staff person, once you know what your goals are, you really have to be more intentional about who you surround yourself with. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, "You're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with." I think that might be true early on, but I think as you mature in your career and your identity as a woman and a professional woman, you tend to be the average of all the people that you surround yourself with. So finding that inner circle is a kind of a special role.
So how do you begin to, again, all the people, but if you're wearing your career hat or your business hat or your family hat or your spirituality hat, how do you begin to say, okay, this is the circle? How do you do that? How do you
Well, I
expand
think
it?
I think it's just really important to think about what you want from the people that you surround yourself with, right? I think what you alluded to it earlier. The most important element for me is someone who will tell me the truth. And I think you also, talk about you might not want to hear that truth, right? But I want somebody who's going to shoot straight with me, who's going to push me to be better, who's going to really help me make that sharp turn when I'm going in the wrong direction. And sometimes we call it tough love, but it doesn't have to be mean. We don't need mean girls. We just need some tough love sometimes to say, I think you're too deep in it. And if I could just help you see it from 30,000 feet above, this is what it looks like to me. Those are the kind of perspectives that you want in your inner circle.
Absolutely. So you're kind of talking about it. So the one asking for that and the one giving it as well. Because again, we're not trying to be
Mhm.
mean. But again, if you're asking me, I'm assuming you really want to hear it.
Mhm.
Or if I'm the one asking, make sure I really want to hear it.
And I can tell you one of my best tricks, and I learned this in my coach training because after I got laid off from my corporate job, I spent a year training as a coach. And one of the best things that came out of that, besides all the tools I learned, was really learning to ask for permission. May I have an idea? May I share it with you? I have an observation. I have a hunch. Would you like to hear it? And it's such a gentle way to ask for someone's permission before you share something that might be difficult for them to hear or that might be insightful and they're not ready to hear it yet. But I think if you can fulfill your role as an inner circle person, it's an obligation. It carries some weight with it.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So I think too, I'm hearing you need to be clear as the one asking somebody in your inner circle, be clear about what you really want. Do you want feedback or do you want someone to hear you out as you work through what it is? What has
Yes.
been your experience with that?
I like to think about it as your own personal advisory board, right? So you might need some people with some technical experience that you need. Perhaps you need to know how to set up a business. And you would want some people who might be willing to play in that arena. And then you definitely want people that you can trust that, will offer you that feedback to say, have you thought of this? I look for people who can offer me different perspectives. Perhaps you hadn't thought of this, but I had someone tell me one time I was getting ready to make an offer as a coach, and she said, "How big is your list?" Right? Because you have to have a list of X in order to make that successful. Because my idea was very grandiose and I wasn't ready for it in terms of the list that I had built and the people that I had made contact with. This was very early on. That feedback to this day, I consider very valuable, and I wasn't really ready to hear it, but it was the truth, and I needed to hear it.
Right. Yeah, that's an important role. And I hear you,
Mhm,
the obligation, and it's a sacred duty to make sure that
mhm.
you are providing that as well. We keep doing the two shot, and I'm so curious about the book that we see here. And tell us about your next chapter and why did you decide to, because a lot of people want to write books, but why did you decide to actually write this book?
I think I couldn't be, an inner circle person to a lot of people who are asking me questions, and when I did, the transition from being laid off from the corporate career to trying to figure out what to do next, I always had a process that I followed in my career, and I said, "I wonder if that process would work here," and I call it Crave. It's kind of unique. C is for choose, you have to choose what you want to do. What are the possibilities of the things that you want to try? R is for reimagine. Can you picture yourself doing that thing? And how does it make you feel? There's no plan without action. So A is for action. And I wanted people to get in touch with the tiny little consistent steps they could take to move in that direction. V is for validate. Once you start moving in a direction, you kind of have to check in with yourself to see if it's really working. And the thing that we most forget about is to enjoy and celebrate. So the E is for enjoy.
Right, right. Yeah. And I want to talk to you a little bit too. Thank you for sharing that because that's important because, sometimes I forget to enjoy, like, oh, enjoy. What's
Yes.
that? What are we doing
Yes.
here as well? Talk about your role as an executive coach and business consultant. And in particular, Tina, what you have seen and how things have evolved, especially with the great resignation, especially
Mhm.
with people asking themselves some very powerful questions and people saying, you know what, life is short. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but life
Mhm.
is short, and I need to
Life is
do
short.
something
Yeah.
different. Yeah. What are,
Well,
what are you?
it's really interesting because I will work with a small to medium-sized business owner, but I'll also work with that person's executive team. And I will do one-on-ones, I'll do group, sessions, I'll do conflict resolution. I do a lot of workshops and things like that with them to just bring their culture to the next level, to get people operating at a higher level. What I'm seeing is different expectations from every avenue. So the business owners are examining whether they want to work the way they're working in their business. Do they want to make adjustments? Do they have an end game? Do they have an exit strategy? What is it? For the executive leaders or their numbers 2 and 3 or 4 and 5, um, they want to operate differently within that environment. They want to challenge themselves. They want to know what's next. I work with all different generations, and expectations are all over the board. But there is definitely an undercurrent of people wanting to define things differently for themselves. You know, the old work-life balance is so overused. I think people want to know how they can make things coexist that are important in their lives and in their professional lives as well.
That is, and again, it's some big questions that we need
Yeah.
to ask. And I know oftentimes we want to get it right. So those who are pivoting, and it's some for them, it's been what a year or a little bit more than a year, maybe
Mhm.
almost close to 2 years if they did it
Yep.
at the beginning. Where are they? Do they feel that they have made the right choice, or are they trying to get back to what has been familiar with a different mindset and a different attitude?
I tell you the thing that they want the most, they want the business, the revenues and the profits to grow. They want to get back to where they were and then grow from there. Some grew during the pandemic, depending on what products and services they had. Some pivots became even primary revenue streams for some of my clients. Um, but I think they have found more of a way of settling in and accepting new reality. The remote work, people wanting only remote work and not wanting to come into the office. The acceptance of fixed costs like rent when people aren't in the office. You know, there are just some things that business owners are accepting and employees are negotiating. And so they are meeting somewhere in this negotiation around what works for both. And how can you maintain productivity, creativity, innovation, culture, relationships, and all of those things, development of people, because we don't want anything to get lost in this new environment that we find ourselves in. It's very challenging.
It is. Yeah, I won't even say exciting, but it is challenging trying to
Mhm.
figure it out, and maybe not having the the sum where somebody has to lose. Like, how can we win, both win
Right.
in this scenario as well?
And if
One of
I
the
can
things,
bring it back to, excuse me,
yes,
if I could bring it back to the inner circle, this is where your inner circle is really helpful. If you have other business owners in your inner circle, being able to tap them for information. What are you doing here? What's working for you? What's not working? What are your people saying? How are you recruiting? Where are you having some luck finding great people? You know, that has been the real value of these networks and these inner circles, particularly during this challenging time. Besides just uplifting us and saying, it's going to be okay, you know, we're going to get through this.
yeah, we're going to get through this. We also have called you, of course, the CEO, the founder, CEO of Design Your Success. You're an author, but you're also known as the employee whisperer. That's interesting, Tina. How did
Uh-huh.
that moniker come about?
It actually came from my clients. They would tell me all the time in feedback, you know, when I'm faced with a difficult situation, I ask myself, what would Tina tell me to do? What would Tina say? And so they started calling me the employee whisperer. And I actually offer my ongoing clients time in between sessions to, if you're getting ready for a difficult conversation, if you're going to have a confrontational meeting, if you have some interesting information to share that you think someone won't like, let's kind of talk about it and plan it. If you had a bad conversation, something that did not go the way you wanted it to go, let's hop on a call and deconstruct it and see where it went left. And they find that really, really valuable. So that's where the employee whisperer came from, because I'm like the voice in your ear that kind of helps you think about phrases and put things in your toolkit. So when you're in these situations, you then have new habits that you can call on and they become natural for you.
Tina, how do you think you have grown, shifted, expanded as we navigate all of these different things? You know, where you started was one way, then it evolved into something else, and employees, not being there for 30 and 40 years, and then the great resignation, and millennials coming in with very clear ideas of what they want and what they will not accept or
Yes.
tolerate. So how have you been able to, I want to use the word relevant, stay relevant, but how have you been able to maneuver the changes as well?
Well, I tell my clients that active listening and emotional intelligence are two really, really important pieces of leadership, right? I deploy those every time with my clients. And I listen for consistent themes that I'm hearing across my clients. I read a lot in the business journals and the HR journals, what's going on, and I look for those consistent themes. And when I start to see those themes, then I know I'm on the right track with what I'm helping them with, what I'm imparting to them in terms of advice and consultation. And when I first got started, I was like, I'm going to be a life coach, right? And I wanted to resist all the business stuff that I had in my brain. I just wanted to distance myself from it. It wasn't until I started to mesh my business experience, which is very extensive, with my coaching tools that I started to really hit my sweet spot. So I think there's probably very few situations that I run into with my clients, no matter what industry, that I haven't either observed or been part of. So it's really interesting. I can draw on that experience and really give them some practical ideas.
This may have to be a topic for another show, but I'm always, and I've experienced it myself. Why do we, when we're pivoting, changing, embracing something new, we automatically want to let go of everything in the rearview mirror? Why do we do that?
I think we think it's a necessary evil, right?
Yeah.
We must push all that aside in order to be renewed. And little
Mm.
do we know that this is part of the consistent evolution that we are experiencing as human beings. And so that's why your inner circle needs to continue to evolve, because we're evolving. And the help that we need and the assistance and the points of view and perspectives that we need are all needing to evolve with us.
That's powerful. How can our powerhouse audience, we want to quickly say hello to Danielle. She's always watching, and she said, two of my favorite people. Yeah, I'm including myself in that. So good morning. Thank you for watching. And Tina waves
Thank
back at
you.
you as well. Nicole, thank you. So how can people reach you? Particularly if they want to work with you, or they just want, because I know you have an e-letter, and which I'm
I
on the mailing
do.
list, which I love. Great topics. This is one of the topics: inner circle, surrounding yourself with success. So how can people continue to find out more about what you offer?
If you want to go to my website, we have designyoursuccess.com/magazine. Will get you into my subscription mailing list. And I'm going to be very honest, I do an email once a week for for a month, and one of those is the edition of my Employee Whisperer magazine, which has a ton of tips and advice. You've seen it. It's hot topics about what's going on in the business reading that I'm doing, executive coach wisdom, some quotables, things like that.
Yes.
And I think I've gotten really great feedback on that. But if you want to hop on a call, if you have something that you want to talk about, I offer a callwithtina.com. It's an easy way to remember how to get in touch with me, and you'll be able to schedule a short targeted call with me, and we can talk about anything that you want, and it's
Right.
complimentary.
Oh, wonderful. What I like about Tina, which your writings, it's so succinct. It flows very well. And again, I get why some sales letters are like 18 pages, but I'm always looking for the bottom line anyway. And so you present it in such a way that I'm going, okay, and I love the quotes pop, you put your own wisdom, your own
Thank
thought
you.
leadership in it. It really works well. So I want to applaud you
I
on that.
I write for busy women,
Ah,
and busy professionals, business owners, because that's the way that I read. I read for, what tip can I pick up today? What can I learn today? Oh, I have this problem. Let me read further. And I try to base it on the themes that I'm hearing with my clients. So I know that the topics are quite relevant.
that's wonderful. Thank you, first of all, for being on the show. Excellent, excellent. And I really wish that more success, even more than you imagined, is on the way for you, because you
Thank
continue to
you.
help entrepreneurs, employers, women, people who are trying to navigate some very uncertain times. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's my passion and my mission, but thank you
Ooh,
for having me today.
Thank you. Passion and her mission. I want to thank all of you for watching the show today and that you've heard something about your inner circle. And if your inner circle is a little kind of dusty and nobody's in there, you might want to consider whether or not it's time to expand and understand the role. And as Tina says, you're the sum of everybody that's in your circle. Thank you for being with us. And next week on the show, we're going to talk about how entrepreneur women really embrace lifelong learning. You will not want to miss that show. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.